just the point that if something terrible did happen, isn't that the time when everybody seems to come together?
Yeah,
and if
9/11.
and if that terrible thing was permanent and it wasn't something we could just push to the back of our memory and say, hey, I don't want to get in the isolation tank and deal with the fact that, yes, we did sponsor a jihad against the Russians, and when someone was blowing things up, there's some mom in Russia right now who cried over her dead son back in the 70s and 80s, and her pain is no different than any American mother that's, suffering because their son died in Iraq. At some point, if we don't put ourselves in that isolation tank and say, we can't escape this. This is something permanent that has affected our
well, the
world,
real problem is the word
then
we.
we have to come together.
Yeah, the problem is the word we. It's like, who's actually doing this? Who's actually doing It's a very small amount of people that are actually in charge of the heinous acts of the world. It's really kind of fucked up. Small amount of people put forth the motion of a large group of people that work for the cause. But it's a very small amount of cunts. It's kind of incredible when you really stop and look at how fucked up the world is to a small amount of people. Isolated cunts. Yeah. Yeah, like guys like Dick Cheney. Remember when he was in that bunker all the time?
Deciding what Bush would do.
What the fuck was that about? Dude would just hide in the bunker, and we would just go up. We hear Dick. How do I know he's in the bunker? I mean, that seems really stupid. I'm not even trying to find this out, and I know that he's in the bunker. You know what I mean? What the fuck kind of weird shit is that? Are you so confident in that goddamn bunker?
Listen, people like him are in the position that they're in because they convince other individuals that they're moral leaders. That in some way, look, this is my only thing in terms of Republicans and Democrats when we have this debate and we discuss it. They're both have to pander to corporations. However, in my experience, I've met a lot more conservative people that try to play pious and like, oh, that's so horrible, and as opposed to saying, yeah, we're all part of this. You know what I mean? As opposed to just being who you want to be. Instead, you lie about who you want to be, and then you're trying to pick men up in an airport bathroom, or you're secretly selling arms to enemies, or you're doing. At least just be who you are. But at some point, you couldn't be in that position you are unless you didn't convince people that you're a good Christian. You know what I mean? That you're a humble person, that you care about other people. When in reality, you're probably not any of these things. And you got into politics because it's a good fucking payday.
Well, it's also they want power.
Power, too.
The reason why...
Or women.
the reason why anybody who wants to be president shouldn't be president is that nobody should want to be president. Nobody should want to be that guy, the one guy that gets to decide everything. How arrogant are you? You're crazy. You're out of your fucking mind. The position shouldn't exist anymore. It shouldn't be a way where one person is thought of as our great leader in 2012. It's nonsense. It's a form of leadership, a form of hierarchy that exists in small groups of primates, okay? That alpha shit works with one person when there's like 50 people.
But I don't think
one's got to be the bad motherfucker, the leader of the tribe.
I don't think that really is a functional system now. I think that's the imagery the system gives you. But obviously,
well, I know, but I'm saying
like
he should
Obama,
even abandon that. He has a cabinet. Yeah.
But people have, but not just the cabinet. He has a plethora of backers that have given financially to it. And at the end of every election,
he represents them.
These motherfuckers expect to get paid. They expect to get what they gave. You know, and look, if I make a fucking investment, homie, I want some returns. This is you're gonna do something for me. I gave to you.
That's why Mitt Romney is so dangerous with this medical marijuana shit. He's the most dangerous because he says he'll fight tooth and claw to stop medical marijuana. Well, of course you will. Of course you will. Someone's paying you to do that. It's smart. Right. Smart for you. Smart for you to get on that hustle, too. That hustle's a weak-ass hustle. It's a dumber hustle. The Republican hustle's way dumber because a lot of it is based on, silly ideologies. Well, it's based on people that don't want to think.
One of their primary selling points has always been religion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I mean? That's what I'm
Especially
talking about.
in the modern age, and I would say more so after the Reagan era, because one of the first presidents to really bring out evangelical voters was actually Jimmy Carter, and not any Republican.
Really?
At first,
it's always attributed to Reagan's administration that they actively targeted them.
Jimmy had more of them. Again, down south, very Christian, humanitarian.
Peanut farmer.
Played that up very much so, man of the people. But at some particular point, if we're incorporating your philosophy into it and we're incorporating all this stuff, I always thought about it this way. If religion is the selling point, then let's sit in that tank where we move everything apart and we think about humanity as a whole. In Egypt, 3,500 years ago, people worship deities like Anubis, Osiris, an anthropomorphic figure with the body of a human being and the head of a jackal or an owl.
Right. You know why they did that? And they were high as fuck, son. That's why.
Or they prayed to these figures thinking that they were going to bring them food or love or long life or a cure from sickness.
Money, bitches.
Right. Everything that was real back then, that's real to them now, or that's fake then, that's fake now. But my thing is this: if we look at it from that perspective now as Americans, like, oh, that's so ridiculous, somebody's worshiping a statue like that with it. Well, that's 3,500 years from now. If humanity makes it 3,500 years from today and they look back at this time, I know exactly what they'll say. They'll say, just as we said about those people, look at these ridiculous, pathetic human beings that lived at this time. They worshipped a dead guy nailed to a piece of wood, and they couldn't understand the most basic thing he was trying to tell people, which is treat others the way you want to be treated.
Or they worshipped a dude who you can't even draw, or people want to kill you.
Right. Or at any point took a position that said, I'm going
to think,
to create the ability to just tell people something and not have them question it ever at all.
Yeah.
That's the most dangerous part, I think, about
it's ridiculous.
Anything, because you should be able to say, hey, man, if one of these things is illogical, then all of them have to be illogical. If you're telling me, oh, it's impossible for Jesus to have resurrected, okay, but it's possible for a man to divide the ocean, for someone that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be on him, ascends into heaven, that's the same thing to me, or is the same impossibility. But I think that when you look at people's lives who live in poverty, the reason that's so prevalent there is because their lives are so ridiculous, because their lives are so insane that I couldn't understand. But that's just as outlandish to me as walking on water. The idea that, you know what, I'm going to have to drink my own piss today, or I'm not going to fucking be hydrated, or I have to go for 3 days without food, or I have to cut pieces of my flesh out.
So you're saying that their life was so fucked that the religion, it was easy to give them religion.
Well, I'll put it this way. I'll give you a personal example rather than using a hypothetical. My grandmother, whose house I just left, like I was telling you before, I took her to Vaughn's. I always show grandma love. I care about her a lot. She raised 10 kids. You know what I mean? And God bless her soul. My grandfather, God rest his soul, was a good man in his later years, but he fucked up a lot of things in his first years. So he wasn't around a lot. And I always think to myself, like, there's something about the idea that grandma had that somewhere in the sky, that a guy named Jesus, you know what I mean, with the mullet and the cut, you know what I mean, and the blue eyes, was out there watching her, and she depended on that idea. I'm not trying to steal that love and compassion from anybody. I'm not trying to take any religion away from people at all. I just tell them all the time that unless your religion makes you a better person, unless it makes you less judgmental over people's lives, if it makes you more generous, if it makes you look at people and say, hey, just like you said, you know what? What if I was that person? What if I grew up like that? Then it's ennobled you. But if it makes you more pretentious, if it makes you more of an asshole, if it makes you say, I just have the real truth and everyone who doesn't believe in what I believe in is going to hell, then your religion has failed you as much as you failed that religion, in my humble opinion. That's all I would say. That without that connection... It's
just an ideology. And the real problem with the ideology is it answers questions that have no answers. Doesn't make any sense. It's not that there couldn't have been a Jesus, not that even couldn't have been a guy who came back from the dead. How the fuck do you know? Right. I don't know.
Exactly.
Okay, if you're talking about one magical act, let's just go hypothetical completely. One magical act. You're saying that magic can't exist? Is that what you're saying? Maybe it can't right now. Maybe it did at one time. I mean, isn't it possible that somewhere along the line, someone had figured something fucking crazy out? Just like today they figured out the internet. Just like today they figured out cell phones and bullets and laser beams. Who the fuck knows? What do I know? But what I do know is that you can't make absolutes with human beings. You can't tell me that you know the answers, because if you go back to a science book from 100 years ago, almost none of it is like a medical book, like medical science. Almost none of it is applicable. Like the things they used to do to help people 200 years ago, 300 years ago when they were sick.
Or space.
That's nothing.
Anything, right?
That's nothing. And you're counting on the word of God from people who wrote it down More than 2,000 years ago. And by the way, the oldest version of it is the Dead Sea Scrolls. They wrote it on animal skins and left it in fucking clay jars in the hills of Qumran. And this shit is like 1,000 years older than even the oldest version of the ancient Hebrew Bible.
They can't even acknowledge the present day New Testament. They're saying they have a debate now about what language it was in, whether it was in Greek or Aramaic. So even at that point, we're talking about the inability to sit down and precisely time something. Yeah, that's what
a lot of people don't understand as well, that ancient Hebrew was also, they didn't have numbers. So like the letter A doubled as the number 1. Right. So, and then words had like numeric value, like the word love and the word God, they have the same numeric value. And that was like important for the way they wrote things. They wrote things not just with letters, but numerically. It's really trippy. And apparently that's all lost in the translation to Latin and Greek and like their original feel of those
even
words.
Latin and Greek, for example, those ancient languages like a Hebrew, Arabic, Latin, Greek, there are words that mean several different things.
Sure,
and I think it's just a testament to how basic our form of communication is, that in rap and lyricism, I have to create wordplay, double entendres, things that have double meanings. This that really means this.
Can you imagine writing in ancient Hebrew?
That a metaphor and a simile, where those aren't even necessary in other languages because it's written into the actual words. Like I could have a normal conversation with you in one of those ancient languages if we were back in those times. And they
maybe
would
not
they would
though.
Be full
maybe
of
it was
those.
Really fucking dumb, and that's why they don't do it that way anymore. maybe
it didn't come across right. But I just know English being a very basic, Germanic and Scandinavian type language. You know what I mean?
It's
that came
definitely
from the Angles,
different.
English.
Yeah, I wonder what it would have been like to have a battle rap in ancient Hebrew.
No, but I read an interesting account of ancient Greece and Byzantium at the time, and it was said that even the Emperor Justinian, there were different groups the way we have red Republicans, blue Democrats. They had the Greens and Blues back then that argued for different political factions, and it said within several of these books that I read that even the emperor and other people participated in some of these debates where it had to be at a certain tone, it had to be at a certain tempo. Essentially, they're politically battle rapping one another at some point for their as a speech, but it had to have rhythm to it. It had to have a poetic.
No kidding, that's fascinating. I wonder what that was like. Do you think they rhyme things? Is there any evidence when's the earliest evidence of people figuring out that it's cool to rhyme shit?
Probably when someone went, and they went,
No, but are there really old rhymes? Like old poems? Did old poems always rhyme?
Noah dropped it like it's hot.
Noah dropped it like it's hot?
Yeah.
For real, when did rhyming start? Who figured out rhyming?
Have somebody...
You're a rhyming expert. You should know this.
At Immortal Tech.
Yeah.
Well, who invented funny?
Oh, yeah. That's impossible.
There we go. There we go.
Monkeys laugh at each other. You go to the zoo and one chimp will hit another chimp with his...
I'm saying a lot of words sound the same. You never know who sounded right.
I know, but I wonder when the actual art of writing things down and making them rhyme, doing them correct, and doing in time.
Harry Mary.
Yeah. Someone figured out that there was something cool about that. Because there really is something cool about rhyming shit. It makes it better. You got to take a leak? Yeah, straight out that door. Last door on the left.
We got a show Friday.
Find out. Yeah, show Friday, dirty freaks.
10:30. Joey Diaz, you said?